Today we'll work on the last tutorial for Excel 3, okay? And then next week we'll have a revision. And in our last week, that means 29th of November, there will be an in-class practice for Excel and Access, and you have to go back to your own session. If you're a session A student, you go to session A. If you're a session B student, you go to session B. Session C students go to session C, and session D students go to session D, right? Session A students start at 2:30. Session B students start at 3:30. Section C students start at 4:30, and Section D students start at 5:30, remember. Now go to the right, all right, your own time slot and work on the exercise on the 29th, all right? That's something that you have to know. And that in-class practice will be 16% of the continuous assessment. All right, let's come back to the last tutorial today. And the first thing you have to do is we have to learn how to join two cell content, all right? And when you open the document we just inform you to download, let's open one more worksheet and name it demo. When you upload it to me, you also should have that demo there. And after that, okay, maybe we set it around 180%, right? And then today we will have to learn what is meant by joining cell content, right? Hang on. Joining cell content. Now to join cell content is like introducing formula, and this time we will have to use a symbol called ampersand. Now this one is called an ampersand, okay? It is shift 7 on your keyboard that you have this symbol. Now, when we will be using ampersand, it can be a situation like that we have some name here like John, Mary, and Jane. And now I want to form an email for John, Mary, and Jane, and they all have an email in hotmail.com, for example. Okay. And then what I want to do is I want to form an email, all right? And the email is john@hotmail.com in C1, and mary@hotmail.com in C2, and jane@hotmail.com in C3. So I go to C1 first and introduce a formula there. To introduce a formula, if you can still recall since the first lesson in Excel, we say we have to have an equal sign there first, an equal sign. And from the first lesson, we also know that we have to use the name box for John. So that would be A1. So I'll be using A1 because I want to share the formula later. And then I'll be using this ampersand, right? Ampersand. So I say ampersand. I let John stick with a symbol called add. Remember, when you're forming email, you need an add, right? But add is unknown to Microsoft Excel, so you have to use a double quote to double quote it. So I would say I would press shift single quote, then I double quote, and then add shift single quote, right? Sorry, shift single quote like that. Now, this is a single quote with shift, right? Shift single quote, you get a double quote. So do not press two single quote and thinking that you are having a double quote. No. You press shift single quote and then you have a double quote. Now, add is a foreign symbol to Microsoft Excel, so you have to double quote it. And then you join again, joining this time Hotmail. Hotmail is in B1, so you say B1. And then enter. You should have john@hotmail.com in C1 there, isn't it? Now, after you have C1 created, you want to share this way of making formula to Mary and Jane. So you go to the bottom right corner for C1. You plan to use formula paste. That's why you see the solid cross here at the bottom right corner and extend it. But when you extend it, you're going to find out, oh, there's a problem. You cannot see Hotmail. When you go to formulas and click show formula, you're going to find out why. The first one is okay, but for the second one, you see, that's the problem arise. You want to have B1, but it's go to B2 now. For the third one, the same. It go to B3. So what is the problem? The problem is the cell now is in relative addressing. That means the cell, the column references, the coordinate, the name boxes will change as you progress through your formula page direction. Therefore, you, after observe this one, you know, I want to have John, Mary, and Jane chain is okay, but I do not want Hotmail chain at all. Therefore, if you don't want any cell changing at all when you're formula pasting something, you have to, the first way to do it, easy way to do it, is you use absolute reference. Absolute reference or absolute address, meaning that you will put a dollar sign before the alphabet and the number coordinate. All right, so let's try this. Let's go to C1 here, changing B1 into $B, $1, and then enter. Now, after you've done that, it's okay for C1. As you see here, the B1 is in pain. Now we go to the bottom right corner and extend this calculation all the way down, share them. See whether it will be okay. Now you see, in Mary row, it would be A2 and then still B1. In Jane row, it's still the same. If you go to formula and press show formula once more, you're going to find out that you have John at hotmail.com, Mary at hotmail.com, and Jane at hotmail.com as you wish. Okay, so that's good. However, sometimes you are not allowed to use $2 signs. Instead, you can only use one. If this is the case, you fall into something called mixed reference. Mixed reference or addressing, meaning that you can use only $1 sign instead of two. But you expect to do $2 sign work. If you use the dollar sign correctly, $1 is doing $2 sign work. If you use it incorrectly, you become losing your dollar. So let's take a look at, let's see if we now change to mixed reference. How should we change it? We can go to formula and show formula once more. Now you have to leave $1 sign alone, aside. Give it back to me. Before you do that, let's take a look at the one without dollar sign first. A1, A2, and A3. So what do you find out of this? If you're moving down, all right, moving down like that, you see that A is not changing at all, but 1, 2, 3 does. Therefore, if you want to give the dollar back, it's very likely that you give the dollar before the alphabet back. So this one, you give it back and change it to B1. And then you see if you extend this one, can you still keep the paying box in B1? Let's try it. We go to the bottom right corner for C1 and update the formula in C2 and C3. All right, using formula paste with the solid crosshair. You see whether you can still keep B1. Now you see you're still keeping it. So that's it. Now what can you conclude out of this? Therefore, you can conclude that like that, if you're moving like that up and down, you should be locking the number. Now, when you are moving a cell, all right, formula pasting it, it's either that you're pasting it up and down or you're pasting it left and right. And therefore, if you're pasting something left to right or right to left, you should be using your dollar sign on the alphabet sign. In this way, you have $1 but doing $2 work. If you match it wrongly, for example, you're moving up and down but you're locking the alphabet, it will be losing the value and you'll be like working with relative referencing. So remember that, please. Okay. All right, now the last question is about if. If is the function, is the last function that we'll cover. In lesson 1, we already told you that there are 5 functions that you need to know. Sum, average, mean, max, count, right? The last function is here, if. If is using relational operator. There you give a test to a condition. This is a test. And you're testing the condition, see whether that's meeting your criteria or not. If it does, that means true. You do the first common word. If it doesn't, that means false. You do the second common thing. So let's go to A10. All right. We try to see how A10s go. Maybe you put 20 over there. And you go to B10 to test whether A10 is greater than 15. If this is greater than 15, you say good. Otherwise, you have to have the number decrease 5. All right. So this is a function. Therefore, we use equal sign. Remember to introduce the function. The function this time we're using is if. So we type if. Open bracket. And then you say A10. You're testing A10 right now, see whether that is greater than this relational operator, 15. If this is the case, you say good. So you double quote good because good is something unknown to Microsoft Excel, so you double quote it. Remember the double quote is a shift single quote, then you have a double quote. Otherwise, what would you do? What does that otherwise mean? 15. Now you're comparing 15. So when you are taking a number, you learn in math already, you have 3 ways to go. You can let your number equal to 15, bigger than 15 or smaller than it. Now you're testing bigger than. So what's the two other rows that you get remain? It will be equal or smaller than 15. So if this is the case, you will have A10 minus 5. And you close the bracket. So because A10 right now is 20, so if you press enter, what would you get? You get good, right? Oh, sorry. There, I get a problem. Oh, because I'm still in formula mode, right? That's why I cannot see the result. I have to click show formula one more time, and then I will have good. Okay, sorry about that. Okay. So remember to return to normal mode after you finish your work in formula mode, okay? All right, let's try a smaller number. If you have a number 14 that is smaller than 15, what do you have? You have the number minus 5, remember? So you have number 9 returning to you, all right? So this is the first part. If A10 is bigger than 15, you say good, okay? Now take a look at that once more. If A10 is greater than 15, you say good. What if this one? If A10 is between 8 and 15, you say okay. If it is smaller than 8, you say poor. So what is 8 to 15? Between 8 and 15 means you are smaller than equal to 15 and what? Bigger than equal to 8. Okay. So what is meant by this one here, gray in color? The first one here is greater than 15 as you see. So if this is the case, this one would be smaller than equal to 15. So you already have smaller than equal to 15. What you left is this one. If I add greater than equal to 8, I can have 8 to 15 here. So in the gray area, you type if once more. Now this is nested if that you have to introduce. If A10 is bigger than equal to, is A10 is bigger than equal to 8. Now this time, because you want a range. If this is the case, what would you do? You will say okay, as you see here. So I will say okay. Okay, if this is greater than equal to 8, then you say okay. For a number, you can be bigger than it, equal to it, and smaller than it, remember? Now, bigger than and equal is already taken, so the only root left would be smaller than 8. So what would you do if this is smaller than 8? Look at that. If A10 is smaller than 8, what do you give? You give 4. And that's why after the second comma, you say 4. Okay? So the whole writing becomes if A10 is bigger than 15, good. If A10 is bigger than 8, okay. Otherwise, poor. Now you have 14, so it's between 8 and 15. You should have okay after you press enter. Let's see if this is okay. Yeah, you got it. If you have 16, that should be good. If you have smaller than 8, maybe 5, you should have poor. You got it, all right? So this is what we meant by nested if here. So try to get remember that nested. This is nested if. And then we take a look at the exercise now. We only have one exercise today. The material in this lab here is pretty short, but the things here a bit more difficult as compared with the previous two sessions, as you can compare. Now the first one is a recap of something we learned last time, insert. Now you insert a row as row 2 here. So let's see if you can still remember it. Let's go to lab 1, worksheet. You now want a new row 2. How can you get a new row 2? Remember in lesson 1. Wherever you are, you can always insert. Now you want a new row 2, so anywhere on 2. L2, M2, N2, O2, P2, Q2, whatever, it's only 2, it's going to be okay. You just right click on any boxes on 2 there and click insert. After that, you say entire row. And then click OK, then you have a new row 2 right away. So what do you do after you have a new row 2? You say you have to add a value 25 in G2. So let's go to G2. Where is the G2? G2 is here. This is your G2. Let's type 25 over there. Okay, very simple, very easy, done. And then here comes something we learned last time, a formatting technique. Okay, it say we have to add a label special monthly expense in the cell crossing D2F2. Okay, if you are crossing something, remember how would we do? We're gonna be using a technique we learned last time called merge and center. Remember? So the first thing you have to do before you do the merge and center, because you have to highlight somewhere and then you merge and center it, right? We go to D2 first and type the word needed. The word needed this time is what? Is here, all right? Special monthly expense, right? So let's go to D2 and type special monthly expense. Now, after you type special monthly expense, you want special monthly expense. Okay, I just left out on Y here. Maybe I have to get it back. All right. After you type special monthly expense, you want special monthly expense to spread across D2 to F2. So you highlight from D2 to F2 first. You highlight from D2 to F2 first, and that's what they say crossing D2 to F2, remember. Then we go to home here and use the formatting technique here called merge and center. Merge and center. So let's apply it over there. Your merge and center is done. Let's save it. All right. So this is the first work that we have to do. It's a recap of everything we learned in lesson 1 and 2. All right. And then the second work that we need to do in this exercise is add a row, just about row. Now adding a row again. It's about something. So total expense. So this is again is an insert. Where is total expense? Do you know? Where is total expense? Here. It's here. Can you see that? Total expense is here. It's A17. Now you want something over A17, so you click anywhere on 17 row. Maybe A17, maybe B17, C17, doesn't matter. As long as this is on 17, that's going to be okay. And then we right click and we go to insert. You want a row on top of it, so you click entire row on top of that 17. All right. And then you have a new row 17 here, right? So what do you do after you have row 17? It says you have to get the first cell, a special expense, right? So let's go to the new A17 here. That's the new A17 now in blank. We type special expense over there. Now after you type a special expense, see what happened. It says, enter now. Here comes something important. Mixed reference. For the value for the special expense in the second cell. Okay. So what do you need to do? You need to let that 25 show here, but you're not inputting 25. Instead, you should be inputting equal G2. However, what did it say? It says mixed method because you have to share this method all the way to the right to January, February, from January to February, March, April, May, and June. If you just use G14, it's not going to be letting you do so because you have relative referencing problem. So what do if you move left and right? Take a look at this one again. Now it's mixed reference. You have to move left and right. So which one should you log? Take a look at this table. You're going to find out. Is the alphabet, right? Because we're now here, right? We're now here, as you see, moving left and right. So if this is moving left and right, we have to log the alphabet. Therefore, you cannot say G2. You have to say what? You say G2 is 25 is okay, but you cannot say G2. You have to say $G2. All right? If you don't say $G2, you will not be able to share this across, remember. That's why you have to say $G2, remember. That's the mixed reference that they're saying about. After you say $G2, you press enter and then you come back there in B17. And then you can share this 25 all the way to June. You go to the bottom right corner and extend it all the way to June. Then you have 25. If you go to G2 right now and press formula and see what formula boxes is now using this 25, you can press trace the pattern. You're going to find out this 25 is now using in the formulas from B17 all the way to G2. Provided that you use the mixed reference correctly. That's how we check sometimes using lines, all right? It's formula trace. If you finish viewing those lines, you can remove those lines. The other way to check formula is you have a formula box and want to know where it is calculated from. If this is the case, you just click the formula box, maybe maximum here 32. You press trace the pattern. Then you can find the normal boxes calculating it. Okay? And again, you can use remove arrow to get them all removed. So this one is correct. With your using, as you see here, mixed reference, you can get 25 down pretty easily. The only three boxes not calculated is these three boxes here, but not to worry, we can highlight the three boxes above the empty boxes that we want to calculate, and then go to the bottom right corner to share these three calculations all the way down one box, and then you can have 150, 25, and 25, right? Now after that, you save it, and then you take a look at January total expense once more. Let's double click it. What do you see? This is the trick. You see? Whenever you do some calculation and then you add something after the calculation range, it actually is not included in the new calculation and you didn't know it. So January is wrong. February, March, April, and June is also wrong because it's from the same cell, right? In this case, you have to update the formula. Otherwise, you get wrong, but you do not know. So remember, we have to change the range back to 17. All right? This is very tricky. A lot of people would miss this one because you just add something on in between the formula. Previously, you calculated it correctly. Now you are not because you just add something out of the range. So you have to be very careful that would that be included in new calculation? This time you see it's not. All right. Once you update it into up to from B11 up to B17, what do you see? Previously, it had $1,000 surplus, but once you have the new expenses, you have, as you see, $24,000 deficit, as you see. Now, this new calculation in B18 has to update up all the way to June. So we go to B18 and then the bottom right corner, and you see the formula page, right? And then you click it and update February, March, April, May, and June. When I release, let's take a look at the value. Oh, it's changed dramatically. Now, February now have a very big deficit of 34,000. March have a deficit of 2,000. April have a surplus of 21,000 and then 5,500. But the overall half year is a losing, it's a deficit of 29,000. So take note of that. Let's save it. Now, after you've done that, you basically copy formula, change formula total expense because you found calculation is wrong, and then you also update the income accordingly. And then we go to nearly the last part. The last part is also something quite important because it's now testing you how to use if. Now this time they say you have to have something called net profit after income. So let's go to A21. A21 is here and press net profit. What is that net profit here? If you study financial accounting, you know from time to time in a yearbook, a year financial report of a company, it would have some explanatory notes for people who never study financial accounting before to explain what it is. Now, this is what you're doing. You want to explain to people that if this is a bracket, it's a deficit. If this is a positive here, all right, no bracket is mean you have a profit, okay? So it's like, make use of an if function here to show if there's a profit or not. How do we say there's profit? Positive, profit. Negative, no profit. Otherwise, break even. So what number you need to look at in order to determine whether that's a positive or negative? Do you know? What number do you need to look at to determine whether that's a positive or negative? Number, what is this number? Number zero, right? Zero. Zero, lệnh. If this is positive, it's greater than zero. If this is negative, it's smaller than zero. If this is break even, it's equal to zero. All three choices, right? Positive, negative, equal. Three choices. See, what do you need? You need nested if. Oh, this is nested if. Okay. So how do we work on this one? We work on January first, and then we update the rest of the formula. So let's go to January. All right, January net profit here in B21. And there you type this. All right. In B21 there you type if B20 is bigger than 0. Yes. Double quote. Otherwise, smaller than 0, you say no. Now, in every number, you remember we have three rows, right? Bigger than the number, equal to the number, smaller than it. Bigger than is taken, smaller than is taken no. So if this is not big or small, the only row left will be equal. And that's why the final one is break even. So type this one in B21 equal if b is bigger than 0, you say yes, double quoted. If b is smaller than 0, you say no, double quoted. Otherwise, is break even. Okay. Now you have to be very careful in typing it. Okay. If you're not careful, you get it wrong. Okay. So try to understand and also type, and then you'll be able to have a higher chance getting it correct. Because normally people type it first time, they always get it wrong. If you type this on to B21, after you press enter, you should have no first, right? But don't extend it. After you have no, you stop there because you have something more to check before you can extend it, remember. So after you type this equal B20 bigger than 0, all right, is yes, smaller than 0 is no, and then break even, you press enter, and if you see no there, you stop there first. Okay. Now let me put this equation over B21. All right, like that. All right. Let me type this over there. I should have no. All right. If you type this one over there, you should have no. All right. But once you have no there, don't go for extension first. Stop there, please, because you have to be very careful when you're extending something. You have to make sure is also work in yes and break even first before extend. Otherwise, you'll be very, very risky. Okay. Have you finished B21? 做完 B 廿一未啊 Have you finished B21? Okay. Now, if you finish, let's go to B20. 去 B20 啊 Type 0 over B20 撳0 and then enter. Let's see if you can have break even. If you have, that's good. And then undo it. Pressing Control Z. 咁啊試下0先，睇下會唔會出到 break even。如果試到啦，跟住撳 Control Z undo。And then you press 1 over there. See whether you see yes. 跟住撳1睇下見唔見到 yes. You saw that. And then Control Z. Now you must do these two tests as well. Because if this one is wrong, anything wrong in yes or no, or 0, all the things there will be wrong. And therefore, you have to do the minimal testing of positive and also 0 first before you expand. Otherwise, you will be in a very high risk, remember. Now we just test it. For 0 is okay. For yes is okay. And then we go to the bottom right corner and extend it all the way to total. Then you will have no, no, no. Yes, 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 no. Okay? And then we save it. All right. That's basically all we have, all right, for this lab today. Okay. You finish it, you upload it in Moodle here, all right, and then you finish your work. Remember, next time we will have revision on Excel and Access, and then on 29 you will have a comprehensive in-class assignment of 40 minutes, all right, and then you have to come back on the lab to your own session and work on it. Okay, now we stop here.